My daughter's teacher taught blue blood. I proved her wrong, and she failed my kid for it. I asked Lily what she learned in science, and she traced a blue line on her wrist and said, "Our blood is blue inside and turns red when it hits oxygen." She said Mrs. Wilson showed a PowerPoint. I told her, "Blood is always red. Hemoglobin makes it red. Veins look darker because of light and skin." She pointed at her veins and asked why they look blue if it wasn't true. I said, "I'll show you." Next day, I packed my scrubs and emailed Mrs. Wilson on my lunch break. I'm an ER nurse at Mercy General and had a 3 p.m. shift, so I asked to give a short career day talk on blood. She replied fast and said it sounded great. In the afternoon, I walked into the class. Mrs. Wilson introduced me as Lily's dad who works at the hospital. I said, "I heard you learned blood is blue inside your body." Heads nodded. I pulled a vacutainer tube from my pocket and held it up. "This tube has a vacuum. No oxygen inside," I said. "We draw blood into it. It doesn't see air until we open the cap." I showed a photo on my phone of sealed tubes from the lab, deep red, even with the cap on. Mrs. Wilson's smile thinned. She cleared her throat. A boy lifted their book and said, "But our textbook says it's blue." I checked the print date, 1998. "Medicine changes fast," I said. "Old books keep old mistakes." I opened a medical text on my tablet and pointed to hemoglobin and light absorption. "Arteries carry bright red blood. Veins carry darker red blood. Skin and light can make veins look blue," I said. A girl asked if the blue on posters means blue blood. "Posters use colors to label parts," I said. "Blue for veins, red for arteries. That's a map, not the real color." Hands went up. "Do humans ever have blue blood?" one asked. "No," I said. "Some animals do, but not us." Mrs. Wilson stood and said, "Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We need to move on to math." I nodded and started to pack, but a girl asked, "So our book is wrong?" Whispers rose. Mrs. Wilson said, "The curriculum says," I said, "state standards list this myth as something to correct." I showed the line on my screen. Mrs. Wilson's jaw tightened. She asked me to step into the hall. By the lockers, she spoke low. "Do you know how hard it is to teach when parents undercut me? Now they'll question everything I say." I said, "We want them to ask questions and check facts." She said, "I've taught for 22 years. I'm not rewriting lessons because a nurse thinks he knows better." I said, "I brought sources. Use them." She opened the door and said, "Thanks for visiting." That night, Lily asked if she was in trouble. She said Mrs. Wilson gave her tight looks all afternoon. I told her she did nothing wrong. Truth isn't rude. Next morning, there was a pop quiz. Lily circled red for, "What color is blood inside the body?" She came home with a red F and tears in her eyes. I held the paper. The question was clear. The mark said, "Incorrect." I emailed the principal and asked for a meeting. I printed the standards, the medical pages, Lily's paper, and a short note about the vacutainer. I stapled the pages, highlighted the lines, and added a one-page chart labeled myth versus fact so we could move fast. On the back, I printed a short note about how light scatters in skin. In the office, Principal Davis listened and took notes. He asked to bring in Mrs. Wilson. I said yes. She came in with her jaw set. He placed Lily's quiz on the desk. "This says blood is blue inside the body," he said. "Is that correct?" She said, "That's how I've always taught it. The book explains it in a way kids understand." He said, "But is it correct?" She said, "It's what they remember." I said, "My kid wrote the truth and got punished for it." I slid the standards across the table and pointed at the myth correction. I put down the photo of sealed tubes full of red blood. "This isn't a debate," I said. "It's basic physiology." Mrs. Wilson said, "Parents shouldn't decide curriculum." I said, "I'm not deciding anything. I'm asking you not to teach a falsehood." The room went quiet. The clock ticked. Principal Davis read the paragraph again, then pushed back his chair. "We're not teaching myths," he said. "Here's what happens now." He turned to Mrs. Wilson. "Stop using that page. Note the correction today. Use updated sources. I'll order replacements for the 98 books." He signed Lily's quiz, crossed out the F, and wrote, "Correct." He looked at me. "We'll send a notice to families about the update." Mrs. Wilson stared at the desk. He said, "You'll attend science standards training this week." He handed me the signed quiz. My hands stopped shaking. I said, "Thank you." He said, "Thanks for bringing proof." I stepped out, texted Lily a photo of the corrected paper, and told her I'd pick her up. When she got in the car, she asked, "Did I do something wrong?" I put the paper in her hands. "You were right," I said. She read the word correct and let out a long breath. "Now other parents are saying I'm undermining teachers. Was I wrong?"